Good afternoon, everyone. This is Mark Fitzpatrick from the Tiger Club of Kansas City, and welcome to the Tiger Club Zoom call for Tuesday, March 2nd. Our guest today is longtime Mizzou sports analyst Chris Gervino, a member of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame and a fixture on the Columbia sports scene for more than 3 decades. Let's take a minute to thank our Tiger Club sponsors, Conrad's Restaurant and Ale House in Liberty, Stables Grill in Kearney, thetigerboard.com, Sports Scene in Lee Summit, and of course, Chicken and Pickle in North Kansas City. Also, thanks to Darren Wydick for engineering our Zoom calls each week, and to Paul Blackman and Barry Cantor for lining up our excellent group of speakers. As always, we encourage you to visit our website at kctigerclub.com for more information on membership, speakers, and upcoming events, including the return of our annual golf tournament, which will be later this summer. And we welcome your feedback at info@kctigerclub.com. We'll talk a lot about Mizzou sports with Chris here in a minute. Before we begin, I wanted to update you on some results over the weekend. Coach Brian Smith's wrestling Tigers, ranked 6th in the nation, won their 10th straight conference championship at the MAC tournament, where they set a conference record for points and saw 4 wrestlers win individual championships, including my favorite name in sports, Brock Mahler. Mizzou finishes a perfect regular season. Later this month, we'll head to the NCAA championships, which will be held in St. Louis. 19th ranked softball team won 5 straight over the weekend, now stands 12-2 under Coach Larissa Anderson. Robin Pinson's women's basketball team appears to be peaking at the right time. They finished their regular season on Sunday with a solid win at Mississippi State, and they'll play Thursday as the number 10 seed against Alabama in the SEC tournament. That's in Greenville, South Carolina. And of course, the men's team will wrap up their regular season with 2 games this week. Tigers travel to Florida tomorrow evening for a 5:30 tip-off. That game will be televised on the SEC network. With that in mind, let's turn to the color analyst from Mizzou men's basketball, Chris Gervino. Chris has been a frequent visitor to our luncheons over the years. During his years as sports director for KMIZ and more recently KOMU, he retired from that position last year, but continues to do an outstanding job with Tiger basketball and as the sideline reporter for Mizzou football broadcasts. Chris, welcome to our Zoom call. No flea market burger to offer you this year, but we're still fortunate to have the opportunity to talk to you.
I know, Mark. Nonetheless, here I am. It's good to be with you guys virtually, the world we live in now. And I just want to say, Mark, before we take any questions and hear from others, you should have been a sportscaster with that rundown you just gave. That was very impressive, informative, and timely. So I could have taken some pointers from you over the years, my friend. That was good.
Well, thanks. I'll use you as a reference if I need to get it down. So, let's jump right in and talk about the Tiger basketball team. 4 losses in the last 5 games. They head into a really critical juncture of the season regarding the seeding for the SEC and NCAA tournament. They seem to be pretty healthy. Can they get it turned around?
Well, that's the hope. You know, they've got the roster pretty much intact now. I mean, everybody is back. Obviously, Jeremiah Tillman's the big guy. And, you know, when he was out, they lost those 2 games. It was in the midst of the 3-game losing streak there. So he certainly solidifies them, defensively as the rim protector. And he's been so good on the offensive end. I mean, he and Drew Smith, to my mind, been their 2 best players and certainly most consistent throughout conference play. It's tough, though. They've lost 4 of 5. And here they go visiting Florida, who's won 3 in a row and 7 of the last 9. And, you know, like a lot of folks on the call, I'm sure have looked ahead to the game already in the matchup. I mean, Florida is the best shooting team in the SEC, field goal, 3-point, and free throws. And defensively, they've been outstanding the last 3 games in their winning streak. They've held the opponents to 38% from the field, 20% from 3-point range. So the Gators are really clicking right now. And it's a tough test on the road there. And then you have LSU, the makeup game here. Those teams are both above Mizzou in the standings. So hopefully that better competition and 2 of the better teams in the league will bring out the best from Missouri. Just real quickly, we had a Zoom call with Conzo Martin today and a couple of the players. And, you know, he said he has talked to the guys, his players, about the task at hand and, you know, doesn't want to add pressure to them. But you know, it is steamrolling toward March and postseason play. And these are big games and important games. And I thought it was interesting. Torrance Watson was on there and he mentioned how Drew Buggs, first-year player here, but a graduate transfer, gathered the guys together the other day and said, you know, guys, we'll never have this locker room again. You know, in other words, we'll never be together again as a group. And it's a group of good people, good players, a lot of experience there. But it was was Bugs, a first-year player in the program, but the guy who's been around the college game for years, a graduate transfer that apparently gave a good little talk to his teammates and said, now's the time, and let's get together and play well and have a good run to finish off, what'll be the final chapters of this group intact, of course.
You mentioned Tillman and Drew Smith have probably been the best players throughout the season, but my observation is the Tigers kind of go as Xavier Pinson goes. And he's had some incredibly good games. And then like against Ole Miss last week, only 2 points, and he did not seem aggressive. What do you see with him? How's he going to look down the stretch?
Yeah, well, we really hope that the good Xavier will show up and he'll be engaged and try to drive that ball to the basket, not necessarily settle for 3-point shots. He sometimes, I think, gets in the habit of casting up threes, maybe a little too early and often. And you're right. And that's why, with respect to him, I think without a doubt, my words about Drew Smith and Tillman have been the most consistent because X has been spectacular at times. And other times, to your point, the last game made 1 field goal and was 0 for from the 3-point arc. And obviously when he's on and engaged and having success, I mean, they're that much tougher a team to defend and to guard and to beat if you're looking at it from the opposition's point of view. So it's been frustrating. And I think it's fair to say, Konzo's been a little frustrated sometimes with his team and with Pinson's play, third-year player, and he's so capable and so quick. He's every time he walks on the court, he's one of the fastest guys out there for either team. And I get, obviously, it's easy for us to sit here and say, drive the ball, get in there against those big guys, take a few hits and put it up and score. So that can wear on you after a while. But yeah, he's got to be good and engaged and a force for Missouri really to reach the potential it has. And of course, he had a good string of games earlier this season. And that was when the Tigers got up to number 10 in the country and had that, 13-3 mark and 6-3 in the league. So it's interesting. It's been challenging, I think, with him because you just don't know what you're going to get necessarily game to game. And obviously it doesn't have to be 25, 30, or even the 36 points he had against TCU, but you just want a little more steadiness, I think, in terms of the approach, let alone the results.
Talking with Chris Gervino, Mizzou basketball and football analyst and formerly sports director at KOMU. If you'd like to ask Chris a question when we're finished, just use our chat feature at the bottom and we will give him some questions when we finish our discussion. Chris, one other guy I want to ask you about, I thought Javon Pickett, a very excellent role player, gave Tigers a lot of good minutes. And I think it's more than coincidence that they haven't played as well since he's been hobbled by his ankle injury. And I saw this morning that he is questionable for tonight.
Yeah, yeah, right. I would hope he'll be back and able to play Wednesday at Florida because he is important. He's like a sixth starter. He hasn't been starting much. Obviously, that's been Mark Smith's role, and Javon came in for those couple of games. But he's so valuable. He's usually out there towards or at the end of the game, which again tells you a lot about guys in crunch time. And that ankle is worse than we first thought. Obviously, it was a hobbled ankle. He played just a few minutes, and they really need him because he oftentimes will guard one of the better players on the other team. He just makes the right plays, Mark. He's disciplined. He's mature as a basketball player. He's in the right place at the right time. He doesn't usually have flashy or gaudy statistics, but he's out there a lot. And so we'll see if he's available. We may not know until, the game gets going and then a few minutes into the game because, again, he's normally not a starting player. But, boy, they need him. And unfortunately, again, a lot of times injuries of various forms crop up, after a full grind of most of a scheduled season to play. But I'd like to think he's back. I don't have any inside information. We don't get much, obviously, of an injury report ahead of time, even us. And we're not at practice, obviously, these days, which I miss seeing them more, and we're not on the road with them. But hopefully he'll be there because Pickett's a really valuable guy. People use that term glue guy, and whether you like that term or not, I think that the meaning or the intent kind of does apply to him. He helps them together. And when he has good games, you're right, in different ways than Pinson, but when he has his good games, his version of a good game, and is there, Missouri can be really good.
Well, I think from the time he stepped on campus, Konzo said he's the hardest working guy on the team. He has a tremendous work ethic, and I think he's really a quiet leader. That's my impression.
Yeah, and even sometimes not so quiet. I noticed the last couple of games I've seen him a little more engaged, and it's interesting. Maybe that goes hand in hand with him being a little hurt, not playing as much on the court. But he has taken a little bit more of a leadership role. Again, I think that's perceptive on your part. He's been around 3 years. Again, he's not one of the five seniors, but he and Pinson and Watson, of course, are the juniors. But Pickett, I mean, people can't forget about him. He has a real valuable role on this team. And again, you look across the box score, he's not going to jump out at you, but he just fills kind of each category in here and there, and just togetherness and his want to. And you're right away he came on the scene and maybe didn't have as much bells and whistles about his recruitment and arrival, say as a Tillman or a Mark Smith, but he was one of Konzo's favorites right away. I feel pretty confident saying that. The coach may or may not use that term in terms of favorites or unfavorites, but Pickett's his guy, and that's a compliment.
We Missouri fans are very lucky to have you and Mike Kelly as our broadcast team for basketball, both now in the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. Talk about broadcasting in the COVID world. I know you're not going to the away games. Tell me about some of the challenges.
Well, it's really different. I mean, I never could have envisioned it this way, but who could have, right? In their own lives and jobs. We were saying before we came on, it was almost a year to the day. I guess it would be next Thursday, so to speak. I think it was March 12th last year. We were at the SEC tournament, and I was headed over there to help on an SEC broadcast. They have an SEC radio network, so all the games are done. And I was going to do the Tennessee-Alabama 8-9 game, which would have been fun with the Mississippi State announcer. And it was an hour before tip-off. It was 11 a.m. Nashville time when they announced to those of us at the arena and beyond that the tournament's going to be canceled. And that was that. And we came home, the team, I traveled with Missouri there and back from my real job doing their games. And we got back that afternoon, that Thursday afternoon, which would have been the first full day of activity. And as I said, in my little world and everybody's world, it's never been the same since. So here we are doing games. The home games, we're at the arena in our usual spot, which last year, we're kind of ahead of the curve. It worked out pretty well for us in these socially distant times. We moved upstairs. We're not courtside anymore. And that was a move made last year just for more space. It got so crowded there along courtside. And you don't hear maybe some of the things that you would normally, or get the close glimpse that you do. But I know Mike agrees, we talk about it a lot. We really like being up between the lower level and the upper level. And think old Kemper Arena, those broadcast booths or suites they used to have halfway up. I always liked those are great vantage points too. And I wasn't nearly as involved then as I am now. So we like the vantage point. We have more room to begin with. And then when COVID comes, well, perfect. We got to keep our perch. And it's really a good spot. But the difference has been on the road. We've not done a single road game, at the other arena. We're not going to go to Nashville for the tournament, but we're going to continue what we've been doing, is broadcasting from an office up in the Hearn Center, one of the third level offices. In fact, it used to be Norm Stewart's office way back when he coached. It's where Norm and Tim Anderson, Rich Daly literally had their offices. I can tell you, I spent a lot of hours in those offices talking, and maybe more importantly, listening to those guys and their stories. But they hooked us up. Mike and I are there watching on a big monitor. We've got Matt Weingardner, who's our engineer and producer, with the regular radio equipment, the audio board, and they feed a video feed, the SEC provides everyone from the other arena that we can see on television, and then also the audio feed. So, you hear again, like I was saying, if playing at Florida tomorrow night, that'll be the actual sound from the arena there in Gainesville, even though Mike and I are sitting at the Hearn Center in Columbia in our makeshift studio calling it. And I think I'm knocking on my wooden head here as I say it. I think it's gone okay. We haven't had really many issues. And I've had so many people been surprised when they realize we haven't been with the team or on the road, that we're calling it from the Hearn Center. We've been upfront about it. Mike mentions, every broadcast at least 2 or 3 times that we're at the Hearn Center while the team's on the road. But I think it's worked pretty well for the most part. Again, we're not going to Nashville, but hopefully we'll go to Indianapolis. That's still to be determined. That's where the NCAA tournament's going to be in and around Indy. And I like to think the plan is right now that we probably would go to Indy. Again, not together with the team, but in our own little traveling party and do the games there. And obviously that's ideal as opposed to being remote.
From what I've heard, you guys, it's pretty seamless, and it sounds like you're right there. We had your old protege, Tom Hart, here last week as our guest. And of course, he's doing very well at the SEC network, but he talked about the difficulty of following sometimes the feed they're getting on the video. we talked about a guy will score a basket and they'll do the hero shot. And in the meanwhile, somebody's running down the court on the other end, making a basket, and he doesn't even see it. Do you face those same challenges?
Yeah, and it's not been as bad as one might think, but Tom certainly would know and could speak to that. And yeah, a lot of times it's interesting coming out of commercials. So in other words, we're watching the feed, and sometimes I don't want to get too in the weeds here, but it's a clean feed where we don't have all the graphics and it's just provided the video of the court, and so that's good. But other times, if it's not as clean a feed, it's more of a regular telecast that we're getting, you do get the graphics. So they'll be putting a promotion up or some stats on the screen, and then they come back and, they're well into the flow of play. So that's a bit of a challenge, but it hasn't been too bad. I think the one concern we had, the one really interesting point, I think was the Wichita State game early, was on maybe ESPN or Tues. So it wasn't an SEC arena and it wasn't a conference game. And that time we were totally at the mercy of the television feed, meaning the over-the-air broadcast. And that's when it was a little dicey and we were worried. I remember Mike and I were thinking, because we hadn't thought about it ahead of time, wait a second, what if the show or the game ahead of it goes long or goes into overtime? So I think we both believed in the power of prayer. We may have said a prayer or two that, oh boy, help us avoid a difficult situation. But that was the only one I can recall. And other than that, again, I'm crossing my fingers, Mark. I'm thinking of you. If we have issues tomorrow, it's been pretty smooth, even on these remote broadcasts.
Let's talk a little about the Tiger football team. Big news yesterday, a commitment from Sam Horn, a 4-star quarterback out of Georgia. You've been around the program, although with COVID, not as close as you can be in the past, but Eli's really making a mark, it seems, in the recruiting trails.
Boy, he is. I mean, he's got a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And as many of the folks I'm sure on the call know, I mean, he's one of the youngest Division I football coach in the country. I mean, second to Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma in terms of Power 5, just 37 years old. And I'm not saying that totally necessarily equates to energy and enthusiasm, but it does in his case. I mean, he just gets out and gets after it. He realizes the importance of recruiting. I think you trust his judgment with quarterbacks when he's recruiting people. I don't know much about the kid from Georgia. It's just recent, but Eli coaches those guys directly along with Bush Hamden, who coaches the quarterbacks and wide receivers. But Eli's the play caller, the offensive coordinator, and head coach. And you look at what they did, and I think it's so important. The recruiting class seems good. They all say they're good, obviously on paper, but he got a handful of guys and then some from St. Louis, and some really well thought of kids from St. Louis. And you always want to close the borders and keep all of the kids at home. You can't do that, especially when you're competing against the likes of Ohio State, maybe Notre Dame, and some of the others, obviously, across the country. But they got some of the higher rated player, I think a half dozen off the top of my head. Another quarterback, Tyler Macon from East St. Louis, Dominic Levette, wide receiver from East St. Louis, a couple of kids from DeSmet, Taj Butts, a running back, Kai Wingo, defensive lineman, Travian Ford, defensive end from Lutheran North. They got a safety from Trinity. They got an Ohio State transfer, Mookie Cooper, the wide receiver out of Trinity. So they have really done a good job, this staff. I say, starting first and foremost with the St. Louis kids. And those are the ones I feel like I do know a little bit about. And those are some guys that can come in and play right away. I think especially when you're looking at, offensive spots and skilled position guys. So, I think a lot of people were surprised that won 5 games last year with an all SEC schedule. That was a pretty good start for year one, especially with the likes of Alabama and LSU on the slate. So hopefully it's onward and upward. But I think the reviews are good so far on the recruiting. We'll see how it translates to on-field performance in the years to come.
Will you have an opportunity to see much of spring football?
They've got a couple of practices that are open, including one this afternoon, but I'm actually doing a podcast with Blair Kirkhope. How's that for a cheap promotion for a Kansas City audience? Blair does a podcast, and
when I go for my run today, I'll listen to that.
There'll probably be nothing you haven't heard on this hour here with the Quarterback Club, but we're taping it this afternoon, so I guess you'll have it up soon. So I will miss that practice out of a commitment to Blair, which I'm happy to do for him because he's such a good guy and does a good job. But yeah, we'll get out to some of them. Some of them are open. The spring black and gold game is March 20th, by the way. Eli likes to kind of get out and get it done early before spring break. And I wish I knew, but I'm not sure exactly how that's going to be, if fans are, allowed or invited. And I would guess maybe limited with masks and socially distant, but I'm sure you can find that out in your own industrious ways. But that's coming up quickly, March 20th, in a couple of weeks. So anxious to see them, because it's really been all basketball, obviously, with the calendar as it is these days.
In your retirement as of last year from KOMU, where you had a long and storied career and mentored a lot of people, how's life in the retire? I retired last year
Good.
too. I love it.
I know you did. I had to follow your lead, but no, it's good. I'd recommend it. You know, I'm very lucky because I had 32-year run doing television, and now I've been on the Tiger Network. It'll be 30 years this fall. It'll be my 30th football season. It's just time goes so fast. So it was. I'm just very blessed to be in that spot. I can't imagine having done anything else. It's just after 32 years, it seemed like a good time. The nights and weekends added up. Not to get too about myself, but as you know, I got married later in life in my 40s, for crying out loud. And so better late than never. So that's been great. But my wife and I were completely opposite hours. She worked days, I worked nights. The joke was we would be under the roof, same roof together, but one of us was always asleep. We were never like awake together. So we've been really lucky, and I'm really fortunate and happy to keep with the Tiger Network. And that really does keep me busy from August through March. You know, if you try to be thorough about your job and prepare and stuff. This year's been different because you can't be as thorough in terms of you can't be everywhere. Everything's socially distant and blocked off. But there were good, selfish, fun reasons to retire. And then my folks obviously are older. They've had some health issues. My wife's mother-in-law's had some serious health issues, and that's been really tough. But we're just so blessed that we could kind of do this together as a team and make more time for our folks. And we didn't know kind of exactly how clairvoyant we'd be, because it's really right upon us now, but we can be there for them like they have been for us. So really lucky in so many ways to be able to lighten my schedule a bit, stay very much involved with Mizzou, which I just enjoy so much, and help our parents as they age a little bit.
Well, we know you've mentored a lot of people who have gone on to great careers in broadcasting. That's a real tribute to you. Talk about a couple other sports. Brian Smith's wrestling program. Brian is probably the most successful coach in Mizzou history when you think about it. They're ranked 6th in the nation. They won their 10th straight conference championship over the weekend. They set a record for points for the MAC tournament, and they get to go to St. Louis for the NCAA championships. Is this the year maybe he breaks through and wins it all? Or what?
You know, he's always knocking on the doorstep, isn't he? And he certainly knows how to get to the front door in St. Louis. I mean, he's so excited about this team. He loves this team, and he's had some good ones. They finished as high as number 3 in the country a few years back. But he's been ranked, like you said, 6th. They've been ranked in the top 5 this season. He's taken all 10 wrestlers to nationals. He told me at the beginning of the season, I did get to talk to him briefly. We recorded an interview actually for one of the early basketball halftime broadcasts, because again, we're not traveling. So all the road game interviews are taped ahead of time. And he said, Chris, I hope we get this season in. We're trying to do the right things. He said, I love this team. I think it could be my best team yet. And again, that's saying something, because they've been top 10 perennially. Says a lot. He's the dean of Missouri's coaches now, 25 years on the job. I remember when he was introduced upstairs at the Hearn Center, but he likes them a lot. They had 4 guys win the conference championships, as I think you mentioned, and your guy is the guy, Brock the Rock Mahler. You can't make this stuff up. What a wrestling name, Mahler, 149-pounder from Tolton Catholic High School here in Columbia. Watched him and know his family a little bit for years, and he's the real deal. He will really challenge, I think, for a national title, but they're feeling good. I mean, he's excited about being in St. Louis. You've always got the Big Ten powers you have to contend with, but it's really good that you mentioned him in his program. He's a good man, a decent man. It was a shame when Mizzou left the Big 12 in terms of wrestling, because obviously no other SEC school has wrestling. So the Tigers go to the Mid-America Conference, and they've won 9 in a row in that league, and of course won the last Big 12 title before they left the Big 12. So they've got still 3 weeks away from St. Louis. It's the second half of the month. I think the third or 4th weekend coming up. So I think it's 2 weekends from this weekend is what I'm trying to say, Mark. And they'll be in St. Louis wrestling for the national title.
I'm talking with Chris Gervino. If you'd like to ask Chris a question, please click on the chat feature below, and we will fire it his way in just a few minutes. I love that name, Brock Mahler. He could become a WWE wrestler, and he wouldn't even have to change his name.
It's all set for him. He can use his real identity and just go forward.
So, Robin Pinchton's women's team we talked about for a bit. They had a very impressive win over the weekend at Mississippi State. They won 2 of their last 3, and the other one was a close loss to Tennessee. They seem to be shooting the ball very well. And they have, despite I think their record is 1 game under 500, they still have a legitimate shot at making the NCAA tournament because they have a high net rating. I guess they'll need to win a couple games in Nashville, but she's done a great job this year fighting a lot of COVID issues.
Yeah, she thinks they have a little work to do, as they say, still at the tournament in Greenville. They'll play Alabama, which is not an impossible task for Mizzou. The Tigers are seeded 10th and Alabama 7th, but they've been close so many times. It's frustrating because they've lost so many of these close games to really good teams in the SEC. I mean, that's a powerhouse league. I mean, with all respect to the men, if you put the women's league up to the men's league, the women's league is regarded higher, nationally,
right,
in terms of the rankings and what have you. Texas A&M, for example, is number 2 in the country right now. And Arkansas, who's I think the 6th seed, beat UConn this year in women's basketball. So the thing that makes Robin's team dangerous is they can really shoot it. I mean, that's really been the forte for years now. They don't quite have a Sophie Cunningham player, but they've got a really good one, Asia Blackwell, who's had several double-doubles, been a rebounding machine. I don't know that they have a Sophie who's really a go-to when you got to have a basket and can get a basket almost any time. But man, they can shoot the 3. And when they're on, I mean, they hit 18 of them in a game recently. I mean, they can really hit from the outside. And that's what makes them dangerous. Now, can you run through a whole tournament that way? I suppose you can in a week's time if you really get hot and get multiple shooters hot. I mean, it's a tall order for them, though, in the SEC. But I think they've got a good chance to at least get 1 win. Then they would play South Carolina, the number 2 seed, on Friday night if they win Thursday. So they're thinking and hoping for NCAA, but I think they realize they have absolutely got to have some success this week in Greenville. And again, they'll play Thursday night. And I would guess they'd need at least 2 wins. But if they get that second win mark over South Carolina, that's a big one. That would be a big feather in their cap, and that could propel them to an NCAA bid.
The other team I want to talk about really quick is the women's softball team under Coach Larissa Anderson, nationally ranked, 12-2 on the season, had split a couple games with Florida State. And then last weekend, they had 5-0 and down in, I think they were in Alabama, but the winning or the clinching hit of the series was delivered by John Cadillac's granddaughter. I just loved hearing that.
Catherine Cadillac. And I remember her when she was a little girl, and John was so proud of her. And that means so much, I'm sure, to that family. But yeah, Catherine Cadillac, and she's been in the program now for a few years through different coaches. She's playing for a real good coach now, this Larissa Anderson. What a job they have done. Yeah, 12-2. They've got a win over Florida State already when they went down there for an event earlier this season to start it out the first weekend. Be interesting to see this weekend. They go to Oklahoma, and they'll have at least 1 game, I know, with OU, who's currently ranked 4th. And the Mizzou women have been 19th and 20th, I know, heading into last weekend at least. But, man, they hit the ball. I mean, they're aggressive. They hit, they run, they score. I think the big question, especially in that sport, is pitching. Can they do the job in the circle consistently against the best teams? Again, I don't think there's a Chelsea Thomas, there's a name right from a few years ago, necessarily in the circle for them, at least not yet. But man, if you could get a pitcher close to that dominant with this group, because Mark, their whole team's back around the horn. I mean, the whole group of positional players is back. Brooke Wilmus, who's an all-conference player, an outfielder, Kayla Kessinger, Kim Ward at third base, Hattie Moore catching, and they've got the whole group back. So it's going to come down, I just know this, at the highest level to the pitching, because they're going to score some runs and put the ball in play. Can they stop the opponent? I think we'll get a good indication, albeit only in March, when they go to Oklahoma and play down there against the Sooners, of course, who are perennial softball powers. And I think, like I said, top 5 national team.
Well, I think Coach Anderson's just done a great job, especially she took over and saddled with what I thought was a very unfair probation, which certainly hurt her first year or two. And she's really got them poised to do big things.
Yeah, they've just been great. I mean, it was like 13 straight NCAA tournaments. Aaron Earlywine had 11 in a row, and then they struggled the next year, but still made it into the tournament. And then Larissa comes in, takes them into the tournament. Last year, there's no tournament, but you've hit upon a couple of good spots. I mean, you look at wrestling and softball and certainly volleyball.
Right.
16 NCAA tournaments in the last 20 years for volleyball. I think the team GPA is 3.6. I mean, those three sports have really been up there year after year after year, consistent. And so I want to throw in volleyball because I know they won 2 SEC titles already, and they're continuing their season. They got a wraparound season like soccer. Volleyball and soccer started in the fall with limited play, then they take a break, and now they're back in the spring. They've resumed play. So there's all sorts of sports going on, even at different times than usual of the year.
You ready for some questions from our viewers?
If I'm not warmed up now with all of your questions, I'll never be. Let's go.
All right. Leonard Hamilton took a while to get going at Florida State and recently got a 5-year extension. Does that help show we need to give coaches like Coach Martin enough time to get their programs headed in the right direction?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's hard to argue with the job Hamilton's done. They've been really consistent the last few years. And of course, we remember the NCAA tournament game in Nashville when he had the Seminoles rolling. It was an 8-9 game in 2018, and that was about a 20-point difference as Florida State really won that going away. I think, Konzo's record is now 64 and 53 in 4 years. I do expect them to make the NCAA tournament. The seed has certainly probably slipped the last few weeks, but I think it'll be a tournament team. I think most would agree with that now, and that'd be the second time in 4 years. And folks don't like to hear it, but they, I mean, the last couple of years, they missed more than 100 games, total injury games, with the likes of Tillman, Mark Smith, Jonte Porter, and Michael Porter over 3 years' time. Now, the first year with Michael, he played 3 games. They still made the tournament in spite of his absence. But, Jonte had been hurt since then. And of course, Tillman's missed games each of the last couple of years. And this year, a couple with the funeral of his grandparent. And then, Mark's been out each of the last couple of years. So, I think people don't like to hear excuses, but those are facts. Those are starters and certainly key rotation guys, top 6, top 7 guys. So they've been healthy this year. I thought we had a good glimpse of what they could do when they got to number 10 in the country and 13-3 overall, 6-3 in the league. I mean, wins over Illinois and Oregon and Alabama and Tennessee. And they just, hit the skids. I mean, Tillman's absence kind of threw them off a bit. And now they're back. And, I hope, I don't know, none of us know, but hopefully they'll be cohesive and make it, for one last good run, kind of like following the Drew Buggs speech, apparently, since the last game. Like, guys, this is it. This is our group. These are our last days and games together as a basketball team. Let's go for it. And good for Drew Buggs if that's what it's going to take to step up and say that. They call him coach, by the way, because he wants to be a coach and he's an older player. And he's really seems, again, I don't claim to know him well because we're so distant these days, but he seems like a good team guy. And point guard has that leader mentality that he's really kind of trying to exhort his teammates down the stretch, because I think they've got talent, they've got experience, they've got things you would look for. We know they can play defense. They struggled during the 3-game losing skid. They were giving up 82 points a game, 3 straight games in a row, all losses after they've been giving up under 70 for the entire first 9 games in conference play. So they got to get back to their defensive identity. And then it just comes down to shot selection and sharing the ball and getting people involved offensively.
Next question. Being a sideline reporter in football has to be very challenging, particularly with the difficulty of seeing the whole field from ground level. How much do you try to watch each play, and how much are you watching the bench and coaches for discussions or injury info?
Yeah, good question. A little bit of everything, really. What's fun about being the sideline guy is you are, right there around the action, and you better pay attention. You're going to get run over on the sideline, but you certainly see and hear a lot of things that fans wouldn't hear, that Mike and Howard up in the booth wouldn't hear or have any idea about. So that's good. And I certainly see the role. It started out and still primarily is really for injury reports, I would guess, more than anything, but you can add a lot and be able to see things that maybe the guys upstairs don't. And having said that, I would also say that there's certainly a reason why the play-by-play guy is upstairs, because that's you might be farther from the field, but you have a much better overall vantage point of the entire field to see plays develop and formations and call the plays as they unfold. So hopefully it fits together as it's designed to. But it's been great. It's been a good run to be down there and just see these high-level athletes. The SEC is like, NFL coming up with all the guys who play. When you think of lining up against LSU and Florida and Alabama and Georgia, Texas A&M and Auburn, it's unbelievable, and the speed of the game is great. And so I've really I've enjoyed it quite a bit, and it's been good. It's been really a fun vantage point, and something that. But I do watch every play. You have to, because you're calling the game and you have to see what's going on. And then it's in between the plays or during timeouts when you can really kind of move around and maybe talk to a few people who might help you out and find out what you can in the stoppages. But when the game's going, you just got to be dialed into that particular play. But it is hard to see sometimes. The questioner is good because sometimes it's just hard to move as quick as the play is. And when you got 100 football players on the sideline, and like this year they're keeping you from the 25-yard line on in. There's a lot of middle ground there that it's not hard to see. So it'd be harder for me to call play-by-play field level than it would be up in the booth, obviously.
I'd just like to ask you, what's your favorite venue in the SEC outside of Faurot Field?
Oh, that's a good question. Just for sheer size, it's amazing and almost intimidation or excellence. There's 4 of them that seat more than 100,000 fans. I would say probably the coolest experience was LSU. Mizzou played there on a Saturday night. And it's just like one big party. And of course, they're usually celebrating games and wins and football success. Alabama's right there. Those would be 1 and 2. But I remember the LSU game. I was on the field before the game, 15 minutes. And I get to know a lot of the officials through the league because we see them usually a few times a year. And I'm right there. And I just kind of went by and I look around and shook my head. And this official said to me, he said, "This is it. It doesn't get any better than this in terms of just the atmosphere, right before kickoff." And I thought that was pretty cool because he'd probably been doing it for a long time at a high level too. But LSU, Alabama, I always enjoyed Texas A&M. Selfishly, I was really glad we went with them to the SEC because I think that's a great venue, and the people are nice, and the band is incredible. I'd probably pay admission just to hear the band play, let alone watch a football game there. But those are some of the good ones. Tennessee's nice. It's right down there on the river in Knoxville, and they tailgate on the boats, the Vol Navy. So it's been a whole new world going to the SEC. That's a good question. I've been glad. We've been everywhere now but Auburn. It's the only place I haven't been to for a football game, and Mizzou goes there in 2 years in 22.
You broke up there just
so 1 year. Yeah, they go there not this season but next.
Chris, you broke up just a little there. Where was it you said about the band and the atmosphere?
Oh, I was saying Texas A&M. I was glad that Texas A&M and Missouri were the 2. We kind of tag along and go together because I just think that's a very unique place with the cadets and the tradition and the crowd and the 12th man and the band. So again, to that point specific, that's always been a place I've enjoyed going. And I then ended by saying we've been to every venue now except Auburn for football. And the Tigers of Mizzou play at Auburn in 2022. So we'll check them all off the list next calendar year.
Which Mizzou coaches were your favorites to cover, and how difficult was it to deal with Norm after a loss?
Oh, gosh. Well, it probably would not be easy now if he was still coaching, but it would not be as difficult as it was then. But man, there were some great memories with Coach Stewart. They say they broke the mold, right, with him, and he's 86 years old now, and I don't see him this time of year because he's out in California. Can't blame him for that with the weather we've had. But it's just such a different relationship now that he's been out of coaching for 20 years and still around town, and I'm around town, and he's a little more mellow than I recall, but it probably made me a better reporter and just a tougher person dealing with him. But he would certainly be, he's one of the best to deal with. Gary Pinkel and I was here for his whole career from start to finish, and we got along, and he's been very, again, it's kind of neat to be here after these guys are done coaching and then they're still around because they let their guard down just a little bit. It's funny how that happens when they're not as competitive or coaching as they were. There's just so many. Kim Anderson, you all know him just as a person. Again, I go back 30 years with him as an assistant to Norm. Tim Jamison was here for 20 plus years as a baseball coach, knew him as an assistant before he became the head man. And then I think, again, the volleyball, I go back to the Kreklows. I think the job Wayne and Susan Kreklow did was just incredible. They came over from Columbia College across town. I remember talking to someone in the administration. They actually asked me literally about hiring the Krecklos, and not that they're going to base it on my response, but they did ask. I said, well, I think they'd be terrific. I said, I remember saying very vividly, what have you got to lose? Missouri was winless for the whole season before switching coaches. And I said, I've watched them at Columbia College. I know them, the people they are. They've got an international pipeline. That, Columbia College, a lot of Chinese students, and thus Chinese players came over, and that continued at Mizzou. And I just thought, they would be a really good hire. I know it's not the most visible sport or gets the most attention, but man, 15 NCAA tournaments in 19 years. And the Big 12 is a good league with the likes of Nebraska and Texas. And then you go to the SEC and they've won 2 conference championships. Now, of course, they're done coaching. This is their second year out, but they turned it over, and Missouri hired, their niece, Molly Krecklo, and her husband, Josh Taylor, who's the actual head coach. And again, they don't miss a beat. They go right to the tournament. And, there haven't been many conference championships, unfortunately, for Missouri in many sports. Wrestling's done it in the Mid-America Conference, and volleyball's done it twice in the SEC. So I think the Krecklos is kind of neat for me because I remember them back in the 90s, at Columbia College when they were winning national championships there. And now they've taken Mizzou to a completely different level, SEC champ and perennial NCAA team tournament-wise. So those would just be some names off the top of my head. I know I'm missing a lot, Mark. A lot more.
Though you talk about the Krecklos, the way they transitioned the program over to Josh and Molly without missing a beat, I thought was really, really tremendous. A nice job there, and kind of keeping it in the family, sort of. So
I think you're right, and that certainly you can't convince me otherwise. Was their plan all along, and Jim Sturck and the powers that be were smart enough in that case to go along with it, and it was just a seamless transition. And again, I think I'm as impressed by that program as any at Mizzou, and there've been some good ones. Again, I put certainly softball and wrestling. If you're just looking at wins and losses and national tournament year after year after year after year, those would be some of them. But again, probably partial to the Krecklos, because I remember when they were coaching away at Columbia College, not getting nearly as much attention, and they just completely translated that to success at Mizzou, and that's one I feel good about. I called that one. I really did. I've been wrong a few times, but I was right about the Krecklos, and they've just taken off. Mizzou would never have done anything differently looking back because they've been so good.
Okay. Next question. In baseball, a manager can live with a player striking out a lot as a trade-off for big power throughout a run production. Robin Pinson certainly doesn't want turnovers, although they've had some. Is she getting something as a trade-off?
Well, regardless of what she is or isn't getting as a trade-off, they need to cut down turnovers. That has been their challenge this season, and even in other seasons. They're just sloppy with the basketball. And, if you want analogies to other sports, how about a tennis analogy? Unforced errors. That just, I'm sure drives her crazy, and coaches crazy too. Konza too. It happens with the men's team when, you just make silly passes or sloppy passes or try no-look passes when there's no reason not to look and pass. Use 2 hands. So I do think clearly with the women's team, turnovers has been a problem. The trade-off would be some of those same players can really shoot the 3. And while Missouri clearly is, if you just look on the court, not necessarily as big as some of the opponents they're playing on the women's side in the SEC, or can match the athletes that Tennessee or South Carolina have consistently, they kind of go about it their way with shooting the ball, and they've had some great wins over the years. It's just hard to, I think, win consistently at a high level when you're so reliant on the 3. I think that's their challenge. They need more of a post presence consistently, and I think that's been the case, for a few years. But again, in the women's game, I think more often than not, you see more 3-point shooting than the men's game, because there just aren't so many dominant inside players, I believe, in the women's game as there are on the men's game.
I'm going to ask you one more question. What do you hear about the new practice facility, estimated time of completion, and location? And I also read Gabe DeArmond had a comment on Power Mizzou this week that Missouri's facilities are among the best now in the SEC, or will be after they get that facility.
Well, they've improved a lot. There's no doubt. Gosh, that south end zone project is really sharp. And I don't know how many folks on the call have been able to go in there and take a tour, but it's unbelievable. I was kind of blown away myself, not knowing exactly what it would be like and look like. And I'd seen the improvements over the years, across the street in the old complex, which were fine, but this was, really top level. And yeah, I mean, they're gaining on it. The problem is, it's just a war. I mean, it's just a battle of facilities, and nobody ever sits still. I think it was the great philosopher Gary Robin Pinkel who said, if you don't see a crane by the athletic complexes, you're lagging behind. And that certainly was wishful thinking on his part, to have the structures keep going onward and upward. And I get it. It's easier said than done sometimes, but no, it is looking good. They've made a lot of improvements. And I think Jim Sturck and those folks have been able to raise some money, and it keeps coming. And I don't know the exact timeline for the indoor facility, but the location is going to be beyond that south end zone, beyond that new complex, in that south end zone area. Southeast end zone is how Eli Drinkwitz described it. I think back, that I guess what would be like Lot G parking lot in that area, where there's also the Golden Girls and gymnastics venue. There's a lot of space back there. So that's where it's going to be, obviously for convenience sake to the stadium, now the football offices. So they'll have everything right there, and then theoretically open up everything across the street for the other sports, and let baseball and softball and soccer have the old facility, which will give them plenty of space and give them room too. But no, everything's leaning the right way. And, I think it's coming. It's going to be on the way here in the next probably year and a half, 2 years. In
Chris,
terms of a timeline is mine.
Chris, thank you so much for your time today. You are about as knowledgeable about Mizzou sports as anybody I've ever met, and really enjoy your time. And we hope to see you in person maybe next year.
I hope so. I miss you guys, but thanks for having me, Mark. And I'll go on a Zoom call with you anytime, buddy. You're the best. I appreciate it.
Do you plan to keep next year doing the sideline and the color analyst for basketball?
That's my plan. We'll see if it's theirs. But
well, I think you have a job.
No, I think so. I got to hit 30 years. Next year's the big 3-0 on the Tiger Network. So why stop now, right? I got to have something to do.
Well, you do a great job, and we're lucky to have you. Again, our Missouri Sports Hall of Famer, Chris Gervino, who works with Missouri Sports Hall of Famer, Mike Kelly. What a team we have. Chris, thanks a lot, buddy.
Okay, Mark. Thank you.
Hey, next week we will have a special guest, Jeff Passan, who is the ESPN senior baseball writer, also the author of the book, The Arm. And I would encourage everyone, before you watch Jeff next week, you might go online and read his article about Drew Robinson. Drew was had some time in the major leagues, was a minor league player, and he attempted to take his own life last year, and he survived. It is a fascinating, moving, and just an excellent piece of journalism by Jeff Passan. We will want to talk to him about that. So Jeff Passan next week. We'll continue our Zoom calls through the rest of this month, and we'll hope you join. And again, pass the word and tell everybody to watch it on YouTube throughout the week. Everybody have a great week. MIZ.